Sometimes the person sleeping next to you every night becomes the stranger who destroys everything you built together. 20 years. That's how long Patricia and I had been married when she decided our life together wasn't worth a damn compared to some kid who was still figuring out what he wanted to be when he grew up. I'm Michael, I'm 47 now, and this is the story of how my wife's midlife crisis became the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it nearly destroyed me first. Patricia was 43 when this all started, though she'd been lying about her age to everyone, including herself, for the better part of a decade. We met in college, got married young, and spent 20 years building what I thought was a solid life. We had a mortgage we'd almost paid off, 2 cars that were reliable if not flashy, and enough savings that we could take a real vacation every couple of years. Nothing fancy but comfortable, stable, or so I thought. The changes started small. Patricia joined a gym in January, which seemed reasonable enough. New year, new goals, all that. She'd always been beautiful to me, but she started obsessing over every line on her face, every grey hair that appeared. She began wearing makeup to the grocery store, buying clothes that were more expensive and more youthful than anything in her closet for years. Then came the phone. She'd always been attached to that thing, but now it was like an extension of her hand. She'd smile at it in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd say it was her sister or a friend from work, but the secretiveness felt different, heavy, like a weight settling into our house that we both pretended not to notice. The real red flag was the money. Patricia worked part-time at a marketing firm, nothing that paid particularly well, but suddenly she was coming home with shopping bags from stores we couldn't afford. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive, saying she deserved nice things after 20 years of sacrifice. That word stung. I never knew our marriage felt like sacrifice to her. April was when I found the credit card statements she'd been hiding. $3,000 in charges I'd never seen, expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together, hotel rooms in the city when she claimed to be working late, lingerie from stores I'd never heard of, though I certainly wasn't seeing any of it at home. When I confronted her, Patricia didn't even try to deny it. She just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like I was something inconvenient she needed to step around. She told me she'd met someone who made her feel alive again, someone who saw her for who she really was, not just as a wife and a bill-paying partner. His name was Tyler, 25 years old, a personal trainer at the gym she'd joined. He was working on becoming a fitness influencer, she explained, as if that made any of this reasonable. He had goals and ambitions and energy. He made her laugh, he made her feel young. I asked her what she wanted to do. Counseling, maybe. We could work through this. 20 years had to mean something. She laughed, actually laughed. She said she was done pretending to be happy in a life that felt like it was suffocating her. Tyler was getting his own apartment, and she was going to move in with him. She was going to start over, find out who she really was when she wasn't tied down to routines and responsibilities, and a husband who, in her words, had stopped trying years ago. That last part hit me hardest. Had I stopped trying? I worked 50 hours a week to keep our life stable. I handled the bills, the house maintenance, the retirement planning. I thought I was being a good husband by taking care of the practical things. Apparently that wasn't enough. Patricia moved out in May. She didn't take much, just her clothes and personal things. She said she wanted to travel light, start fresh. She'd come back for more of her stuff later when things were settled. I remember watching her load her car, thinking this couldn't really be happening, not to us, not after 20 years of what I thought was a good marriage. The house felt enormous and empty without her. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching for her side of the bed before remembering she wasn't there. I'd make coffee for 2 every morning out of habit, then pour the extra cup down the sink. Everything reminded me of her, but also of how little I apparently knew about what she actually wanted from life. For 3 months, I barely heard from her. A few texts about mail that came for her, a couple of calls about financial things that needed to be sorted out. She sounded different on the phone. Lighter, she might have said, happier. It made me question everything about those 20 years. Had she been miserable the whole time? Had I been that blind? Then August happened. Tyler, it turned out, wasn't quite the ambitious young entrepreneur Patricia had fallen for. He was ambitious, all right, but his ambitions were funded entirely by his parents' money. The apartment he was getting, they were paying for it. The fancy dinners and weekend trips Patricia had been posting about on social media, all on Daddy's credit card. When Tyler's parents found out about Patricia, they were not pleased. Their 25-year-old son bringing home a married woman nearly 20 years older than him was not the kind of relationship they'd envisioned for their investment. They cut him off completely. No more apartment fund, no more credit cards, no more financial support while he found himself in the fitness industry. Suddenly, Tyler wasn't quite as charming when he couldn't afford to take Patricia anywhere nicer than chain restaurants. The guy who had made her feel young and alive was now asking her to cover rent and groceries while he looked for actual employment. The freedom and excitement she'd been craving turned into the same kind of practical responsibilities she'd run away from, except now she was dealing with them with someone who had no experience managing adult life. Patricia called me on a Tuesday evening in late August. She sounded tired, older somehow, even though it had only been a few months. She asked if we could meet for coffee, just to talk. I almost said no. The hurt was still so raw, and part of me was angry enough to want her to figure out her mistake on her own. But 20 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear because they break your heart. I agreed to meet. She looked different when she walked into the coffee shop. Still beautiful, but there was something deflated about her. The confident, renewed energy she'd had when she left was gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like regret. Patricia apologized, not just for leaving but for how she'd done it, for the cruelty of some of the things she'd said, for making me feel like our marriage had been worthless when the truth was she'd just been scared of getting older, of becoming invisible, of missing out on something she couldn't even define. Tyler had been a fantasy, she admitted. The idea of being with someone young and excited about life had made her feel like she could recapture something she thought she'd lost. But fantasy and reality were very different things. Tyler was sweet, but he was also immature, financially irresponsible, and completely unprepared for the kind of partnership she actually wanted. She asked if there was any chance we could try again. If I could forgive her for what she'd put us both through. I wanted to. God, I wanted to say yes, take her home, and pretend the last few months had been a bad dream. But something had changed in me during those months alone. I'd realized that while I missed Patricia terribly, I didn't miss feeling like I wasn't enough. I didn't miss the criticism disguised as suggestions, or the way she'd made me feel boring and predictable. I told her I needed time to think about it. Over the next few weeks, Patricia kept trying. She sent flowers to my office, left notes on my car, showed up at places she knew I'd be. She promised she'd changed, that she understood now what she'd given up, that Tyler had been a mistake she'd regret for the rest of her life. But here's what I realized during those months she was gone. I hadn't stopped trying in our marriage. I'd been trying all along, just not in the ways she wanted. And she had never told me what she actually needed until it was too late. We'd both been living in assumptions about what the other person wanted, neither of us brave enough to have the real conversations about what was missing. More importantly, I realized I deserved better than being someone's second choice. I deserved to be with someone who chose me first, who didn't need to blow up our life to figure out what they wanted. In September, I filed for divorce. Patricia didn't contest it. She moved back in with her sister and took a full-time job at a different marketing company. Tyler moved back in with his parents, and from what I heard through mutual friends, was working at a big box store while still trying to build his social media following. The divorce was finalized in December. Patricia kept her car and took half of our savings, which was fair enough. I kept the house, which felt right since I was the one who wanted to preserve what we'd built together. Even if I was now building something new on top of it, I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I questioned whether I'd made the right choice. There were moments I missed her so much it physically hurt. But there were also mornings I woke up and realized I felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't walking on eggshells, wondering if I was boring her or disappointing her in some way I couldn't see. Today I'm grateful, not for the betrayal or the pain, but for the clarity it gave me about what I actually want from a relationship. I want someone who chooses me on purpose, not someone who settles for me until something more exciting comes along. Patricia taught me that sometimes people don't know what they have until they've thrown it away, but she also taught me that not every mistake deserves forgiveness. Some choices reveal who someone really is, and you have to believe them. As for Tyler, I actually feel sorry for him. He was young and probably had no idea what he was getting into with a married woman going through a midlife crisis. He lost his financial support and probably learned some hard lessons about the difference between attraction and compatibility, but that's their story to figure out. Mine is just beginning.